On this week's show, which Maruti hatch is better, Swift or Baleno? Sliding Skodas on ice, and the new Ferrari Portofino. Today on the show, we're going to do something a little bit different. Yes, it's a comparison test and it involves the brand new Maruti Suzuki Swift. But the difference is, this time the competition also wears a Suzuki badge on its nose. Now there are a couple of good reasons why we're doing this. One, a lot of you have been asking for it on Twitter, on Facebook, the YouTube comment section, the website, and even via email. And two, these two cars are really closely matched, be it on size, space, spec, and even on price. So the question we're here to answer is, should you be going into a Maruti showroom and booking yourself a new Swift? Or would you rather go into a Nexa showroom and book yourself a brand new Baleno? And I'm not kidding about the similarities. When the first Swift turned up in 2005, it was a revelation for Maruti. It wasn't just reliable, affordable, and easy to drive like every other Maruti, it was also premium, spacious, and desirable. And over its first two generations, that was its job in the Maruti range, to be the premium hatchback. But then in 2015, the Baleno came along and complicated things. It was brought in to tackle the Hyundai i20, so it really had its work cut out. It had to be bigger, more spacious, and better equipped. So, armed with a new platform called Heart-Act, it proceeded to tick all the boxes. Its look was more subdued, but then it was also lavished with LED running lamps and lots of chrome. The wheels were up to 16 inches in size, and it adopted a more cab-forward shape for better interior room. But back then, the Baleno had the old Swift for company. Cut to 2018, and in comes Swift Mark III, and boy has it grown up. Yes, that classic sporty Swift look is definitely there, but it's been modernized with a big grille, pod-like LED headlamps in top spec, and a new interpretation of the floating roof. The C-pillar is broken by a high-mounted door handle, so at first glance it looks like a 3-door car. Neat! It's clearly grown bigger too and has a wider stance, but it's still 155mm shorter and 10mm narrower than a Baleno. Still, what that does mean is more space. If you've ever sat in the backseat of the old Swift, the backseat of this new one will come as an absolute revelation because it's got actual usable space, whether it's knee room or headroom. Even the width has increased, so shoulder room is a little bit better too. A couple of shortcomings still remain though. Still doesn't have a rear AC vent like some of the competition does, and the back windows are a bit small, compounded only by this blacked out section that houses the outside door handle. And what of the Baleno's back seat? Now yes, the Swift is an improvement over its predecessor when it comes to backseat space, but the Baleno just blows them out of the water. Look at the amount of knee room I have, and headroom is pretty decent as well. What I really like, however, is that the windows feel a lot larger, and there's even this nice rear quarter glass that lets in a bit more light. However, like the Swift, and unlike the competition, there still is no rear AC vent. Amazingly, despite all that extra legroom in the Baleno, it still has a boot that's vastly larger than the Swift's, packing a full 339 litres. The Swift, again, is a huge step up over its predecessor, which had a woefully small luggage area, but its 268 litres is nowhere close to the Baleno's. In fact, when it comes to measurements, the Baleno outdoes the Swift in just about every metric, including the wheel and tyre size on these top spec cars and the ground clearance. So it has the edge on practicality, but what happens when you take both of them out on the road? First of all, I love what they've done with the interior of the new Swift. They've done their best to keep that sporty feeling alive. To that end, the color scheme is all black as before, but you also get these really nice circular AC vents at the center and this wonderful hooded instrument cluster over here. It all adds to the experience. The steering wheel is this nice flat bottom unit, barely flat bottom, but flat bottom nonetheless. And where the Desire gets a sort of wood trim on the dashboard and the steering wheel. This one is a nice brushed silver color. It all works. The new Swift then keeps things sporty on the inside too, so then what does the Baleno bring to the table? Step into the Baleno after the Swift and things immediately feel a little bit more regal. Okay, it's no luxury car, don't get me wrong, but the design theme is less sporty and more upmarket. The dashboard flows down in this V shape, for instance, and the dials are this colorful shade of blue with a nice color screen in the middle that's unique to this car. Neither car has class-leading interior quality, though both do a decent enough job. Predictably, a lot of the switchgear is shared, but at least the design sets them apart. But since they now share a platform too, is there any distinction in the driving experience? Now you have to remember that Maruti has been using the same set of engines all the way from generation 1 to this generation 3, and the car I'm driving now is the diesel. So it's a 1.3 litre diesel engine with 75 horsepower. The thing is, however, the Swift has gotten much lighter in this third generation thanks to the new Heart-Edge platform. Therefore, this top-spec diesel, which is the heaviest of the lot, weighs in at just 985 kilograms. And that means performance does feel a little bit more brisk than the last Swift. However, some of this engine's shortcomings do remain. It can get a little bit noisy from time to time, and there is a bit of lag to get around at the start. Since we're driving the diesel Swift, it's only fair that we brought the diesel version of the bigger Baleno too. So what does it have? 90 horsepower? 100 horsepower? Now interestingly, when the Baleno came out, we did expect it to come with the more powerful 90 horsepower version of the 1.3 multi-jet diesel engine, but it didn't. It gets the same 75 horsepower version as the Swift. Now initially you might think that's bad, but then you got to factor in that the Baleno weighs exactly the same as the Swift, 985 kilograms, and so this engine works just fine over here. So when it comes to engine characteristics, they do feel similar, but up against our testing equipment, there is a difference, if only a small one. That's right, the Baleno overall is slightly quicker than the Swift. However, the Swift does redeem itself slightly in fuel economy, where it's just a bit more efficient than its big brother. Well, the chassis tuning is rather good. They've given it a nice combination of ride comfort and body control. However, what really lets it down is the steering. It just feels so numb and disconnected, and that robs the driving pleasure away. So that's a pretty tough act to follow. So can the Baleno do it? Despite sharing a platform and general chassis components with the Swift, the Baleno feels a little bit different to drive. For one, it's got a longer wheelbase that gives it a more planted feeling on the road. But more to the point, it's got these 16-inch wheels and 55 profile tires, and that makes the ride feel a little bit knobbly compared to the Swift over a rough patch of road. So the suspension does feel a little bit stiffer than what you get in the Swift. But like the Swift, it suffers from a very loose and vague steering. There seems to be a little bit more weight to it in this car, but it's still nowhere near confidence inspiring, and that once again robs it of being a fun handling car. Now it's not just the design of the interior that sets the Baleno apart as the more premium one, it's also the equipment list. Yes, the new Swift in its top spec, guys, is really well equipped, but the Baleno just takes it that little bit further. In their top spec, both cars get Maruti's 7-inch SmartPlay touchscreen with navigation, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Both get auto headlamps, rear cameras and sensors, and projector headlamps. But the Baleno gets a few extras like ambient lighting in the front footwells, reach adjustable steering, an auto dimming rearview mirror, and height adjustable front seat belts. With all those extra goodies, you will have to shell out a whole lot more for the Baleno, right? Well, actually, no you don't. When it comes to these two top spec diesel manuals, the price difference is just 21,000 rupees. And for the top spec petrol manuals, the difference is a mere 7,000 rupees. So how about that for sibling rivalry? These two are so closely matched. So now you're probably thinking, if the Swift does just about everything the Baleno does for less money, that's the one you should choose. Well, you make a good point, and that's especially true if you like the way the Swift looks. So yes, while we're sure that Maruti will sell a lot of Swifts as it has in the past, its job is not going to be quite as easy thanks to competition from within the same stable. So if you're in the market for a premium hatchback from Maruti Suzuki, we'd have to say, make the jump to the Baleno.
Ho ho ho! Well, I know Christmas is really far away, but we are in Lapland. This is the northernmost region of Finland and it's officially the home of Santa Claus. What brings us here? Well, Skoda. They host their winter driving experience here every year, and the aim is to show how good their all-wheel drive system is in testing conditions like this. Now, before I freeze, I'm going to hop into one of the cars and I'll do the rest of the talking from the inside.
Our sleighs for the day come in various shapes of Skoda, and Santa's little helpers are here too. Just that they go by the names all-wheel drive, electronic stability control, off-road mode and so on. Today, I'm told, is a pleasant day. It's just minus 12 degrees Celsius. Session 1 has us drive the new Karoq SUV on a course through the forest. Yes, the Karoq is coming to India, but you'll have to wait a bit longer till we get our hands in more familiar environments for a proper first drive impression. Anyway, this car has studded tires that are required by law at this time of the year, but that apart, there's no other performance enhancements over a bog standard Karoq 4x4. So, how does Skoda's 4x4 system work?
In brief, the all-wheel drive system that is on use in all the Skodas is an electronically controlled multi-plate clutch arrangement. So in normal driving scenarios, when there's no need for added grip, it's predominantly front-wheel drive. As soon as slip is detected, power is transferred to the rear axle, and as much as 85% of power can be channeled to one wheel alone.
We are also told the Karoq's off-road and snow modes will see us through the tough stuff. Off-road mode primes the electronic aids for low traction surfaces and activates hill hold control and hill start assist. Snow mode eases the traction control to allow minimal wheel spin to help the tires find grip on snow, and also alters the ABS settings. And it all comes together rather well.
So the thing is, the system is clearly finding grip where I can't see any, and that is, well, the essence of all-wheel drive. It's a massive safety net, especially in these parts of Europe where it's really snowed out through the winters, and forget the road, you can't see much else apart from snow.
The Karoq slowly but steadily crunches its way forward on the thick snow, and even steep hill climbs don't pose much of a challenge. Spiti Valley ready? Perhaps. A comforting hot chocolate or 3 later, I'm ready for a go in the 4x4 Superbs and Octavias.
So now we've been let loose on the handling track. I've been told that this is where real ice driving fun starts. And I don't think that was an understatement.
Of course, there's first a short lesson on ice driving for dummies.
Lesson 1 has been to be very gentle with inputs at the steering, the throttle, the brake. In fact, we've been told to primarily use the throttle and steering to move the car around. It's the safest way to do things, and if you get the hang of it, it's also the most fun way to do things.
The big picture is to get an idea of how the electronics work to keep you pointed in the right direction in low traction conditions. Every couple of laps, we'll reduce the level of electronic aids. Sounds like a plan. With all the electronics on, the feeling is that the car always has my back. Sure, the stability control light on the instruments console flashes like a Las Vegas slot machine when I try to do something silly, but the electronics are quick to cut or reassign power till they're convinced I'm back in charge. Sport mode makes the electronics a bit more lenient, but the real contrast is with traction control and ESC switched off.
I think I now know why all of the world's best drivers come from this region. There's absolutely no grip.
There's wheel spin on all but the most measured throttles. I can feel a disconnect between commands at the steering and execution by the car, and suddenly the whole driving experience gets a lot busier. It's not what you'd want on a public road. But then again, we're in a closed environment with snowbanks to break a slide should things go too far, so get my drift?
So it's all about yanking the car at the right time and getting your foot modulation just right, which I am sort of struggling with, but the few seconds I do get it right, oh man.
I feel like even more of a hero around the drift circle, drifting a 1.7-ton all-wheel drive Kodiak. Yes, it can do that too. But I'll let you in on a secret. Keep all the electronics off and it's not all that hard to pull off a drift on ice.
It's all about throttle modulation. That is the center of the circle. That is my car's tail right at the circumference.
In all, the day's driving has me convinced of the efficacy of all-wheel drive and the whole host of modern driver's aids in really frigid and testing conditions. They really are the difference between enjoying the scenery and becoming part of it. So, if you're a regular to the Himalayas or even fancy the idea of venturing off-road, a car with all-wheel drive at the very least should be a no-brainer for you. And maybe, just maybe, Santa should have a look as well.
This with me is the new Ferrari Portofino. Now this is a model that replaces the Ferrari California T. You'd remember it as the folding hardtop version in Ferrari's lineup. Well, this model, I'll just tell you a few of its specs to get you interested. It makes 600 horsepower, gets to 100 kph in just 3.4 seconds, and it will be launched in July 2018 for about 3.5 crore rupees. Let's see it in more detail now.
See a Portofino in the metal and you'll quickly realize the pictures you've seen so far just don't do justice to it. Where the California had its odd angles, the Portofino looks like a Ferrari should. It's sexy, seductive, and in this exclusive shade of Portofino Rosso, just eye-catching. To my eyes at least, the Portofino is more a thing of beauty than most Ferraris of late, whose designs appear primarily dictated by just how effectively they cut through the air. The Portofino has its aero-aiding elements too, but the treatment is subtler. Look closely and you'll spot an air curtain beside the L-shaped headlights, and there's the minutest of ridges at the rear end to aid downforce at the back. What you can't miss are the prominent vents at the sides that are there to channel air from the wheel arches along the body sides. As for the roof, it's a metal unit like the California's but now opens and closes in all of 14 seconds and at speeds of up to 40 km an hour. Ferrari has made it lighter, marginally more space efficient and whatnot, but the real talking point is just how beautifully it's been integrated with the rest of the body. With the roof up, the Portofino has that purposeful fastback look about it, and with the roof down, it looks every bit an open-top GT that it's meant to be. And the boot? Well, it's usable too, if only for a weekend's worth of luggage. Roof up or down, the cabin is easy to get into and see out of, the front seats are as supportive as you'd expect, and most of what you touch is really high quality. Also integral to the experience is the fairly slick new 10.25-inch touchscreen infotainment system that comes bundled with Apple CarPlay. Drivers get all the information they need via screens that flank the yellow tacho. And like all modern Ferraris, the steering is home to all forms of controls, right from indicator switches to the Manettino dial. There's a huge catalogue of options too. Don't want your co-driver to feel left out? There's an optional but rather cool 8.8-inch side touchscreen as well that shows speed, gear and navigation info. Now over to the bits hidden from view. At the heart of every Ferrari is its engine, and this one has quite the heart. It's a 3.9-litre twin-turbo V8. Sounds familiar? It's the engine from the California T, but it's been completely reworked and punches out 40 horsepower more, taking power to 600 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. An entry point to the Ferrari range this may be, but it's still a red-blooded Ferrari. The Portofino is also built on a new chassis that Ferrari claims is 35% stiffer than the California's. Overall weight is down 80 kgs to its predecessor, and there's also the big switch to an electromechanical steering from a hydraulic unit. I got a ride in the Portofino, and even from the passenger seat something stood out. First and foremost, this is a ferociously fast car. Ferrari claims a 0 to 100 kph time of 3.4 seconds and a 0 to 200 kph time of just 10.8 seconds. This is no namby-pamby boulevard cruiser. Then there's the way it sounds. Being a turbo, the Portofino doesn't shriek even in sport mode, but the deep bassy note and brash racket closer to the red line is properly fulfilling. The big surprise was ride quality. Yup, ride quality. While not entirely supple and corsetting, the Portofino won't rattle your bones either. There's a bumpy road setting for the magneto-rheological dampers that adds a subtle but effective layer of softness to the ride. Some of the roads in South Italy seem to be the handiwork of India's municipal bodies, and it's plenty to say the Portofino handled them just fine. There was a touch of body shudder, however, over the worst, sharpest lumps and bumps. Ferrari wants you to see the Portofino as a Ferrari you can use every day. How much that holds true in India is something we'll only find out when we get our hands on the car on home soil. I can't wait.